Hey Highland Park, Miss S here with another Miss S moment. This Miss S moment is going to be combined into two different pieces. So this is going to be your brain part 1, and look closely by for your brain part 2 when you're ready for it, yeah? For these brain segments, we're going to be working out of a book called Mind Up. Yeah, some of you have probably seen this around our school, and for many of you this will be review because I know your teachers have covered it in different grades across the school, yeah? But review is always good for us, yeah? We're going to talk about 3 key players in the brain today. Your amygdala, your hippocampus, and your prefrontal cortex. Now those are big words and I'll give you a second to see them in real life and we'll practice them a lot throughout this little segment, yeah? In order to do this in a way that might make a little bit more sense to some people who like to see visually or like to learn by doing things, we're going to use our hands as a model, okay? So if you take your hands and you take your 2 fists and you have your thumbs out, we're going to pretend like this is our brain, yeah? And it's important to have your thumbs out because your thumbs are going to represent the front of your brain. So it's kind of like a mirror if you look right at it. You want to imagine that it's kind of flipped, yeah? So the thumbs are going to be the front of your brain, which is also going to be this blue part on our poster, yeah? Now, I'm going to take you a little bit closer to the poster so you can take a screenshot or you can copy it. You can pause the video and copy it if you want. If you're a note taker or a person who needs things visually, this is what this looks like close up. I know it's not the best, but these days we got to work with what we got, right? And be flexible. So, the first part of our brain, the amygdala, is kind of like our security guard. Yeah, your amygdala is your protection piece of your brain. Now, a lot of us have heard the words fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah, your amygdala is what tells your body when there's danger. So, if something's going to burn you, if something's going to chase you, if you hear a loud noise in the middle of the night, that feeling that you get when you're like, whoa, what's happening? That's your amygdala speaking to your body, telling you you may be in danger, you need to protect yourself. Now, some ways as humans, since like way back in the caveman days, that we protect ourselves is to fight, is to flight or run away, or freeze, where you just can't really move, right? That's your amygdala speaking to your body, yeah? Your amygdala takes care of you. It helps keep you safe, yeah? The cool part of the amygdala is every living thing has an amygdala. So if you think about how fast a lizard runs when you go to step close to it, that's the lizard's amygdala, yeah? Or if you think about your dog, when somebody knocks on the door and it starts barking and barking and barking, that's your dog's amygdala saying, something's wrong, we must protect, right? So your amygdala is a really cool part of your brain that keeps you safe. Another cool fact about your amygdala is that it tells your heart to beat and it tells your lungs to breathe, which is pretty cool. It helps keep you alive, yeah? Now, the next part we're going to talk about is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is like a highway from your amygdala up to your prefrontal cortex. It connects those 2 pieces of your brain. So we're not going to focus on the hippocampus a lot, but the cool part about your hippocampus is where all your memories are saved. Yeah, so it's where all of the learning that you had this year is saved in your hippocampus. Yeah, it's definitely where all of the memories of your family and your friends are saved. That's the cool part about the hippocampus. Yeah. The other big part, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex are kind of our really big parts of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is our decision maker. This is our learning brain. Yeah, this is our thinking brain. The cool part about the prefrontal cortex is that it's just beginning to develop in some of you, yeah? Many of us are born with a whole lot of pieces of our brain, but the prefrontal cortex is one that doesn't fully develop until you are 21 to 25 years old, yeah? But most of us 23 to 25 years old. It takes a long time for this part of the brain to develop, yeah? So sometimes when we have a hard time making decisions, we have a hard time learning, that's because this part of our brain isn't always developed yet, so we need to be patient. Now I want to go back to our hand model. You take your hands like we had them before, yeah? On the inside of your hands, the very tips of your fingers is where your amygdala is in your brain, yeah? The hippocampus is the middle part of your fingers. So you have your amygdala and your hippocampus, which is the highway to your prefrontal cortex, yeah? That's how these things are all connected. So, the way that these are all related to kind of what we're going through now is they have to work together to make sure we can manage our emotions so that we can make sure to access our learning brain, yeah? There's a stress hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is released by our amygdala when the amygdala thinks it's in danger. Yeah? Some things that might release this cortisol is stress, is change, right? Is obviously things like fear, fear, being scared, all of that kind of stuff triggers our amygdala. But some things that are pretty important for right now during this COVID time is that there's been a lot of change in our lives, and there's been a lot of stress in our lives as we try to adjust to that new change. Yeah, some of your parents are working from home. That's a different change, right? Us all not being at school every day is a change. Yeah, spending so much time with your siblings, that could be a change, right? These are all things that release that stress cortisol, that stress hormone called cortisol into our brain. Now, when there's too much cortisol, we can't access our prefrontal cortex, which means that we have a hard time accessing our learning brain, and it might mean that we have a hard time regulating our emotions. Yeah. So what we want to focus on in these next few lessons is how do we reduce that stress, right? How do we make sure our amygdala knows that everything is okay so we can access our learning brain, yeah? So another way to think about this, I like to provide different ways to think about this. So if you get it, you can turn the video off. But if you want some more examples, I'll give them to you. Think about a store, yeah, a grocery store. If you go to walk into the grocery store, there's oftentimes a security guard standing out front. Think about that as the amygdala, yeah? If you go to the grocery store, you pass the security guard out front, you go inside. There are people that put the food on the shelves. There are people that ring up your orders. There are people that keep the store clean. Those are kind of like the hippocampus. Those are like the workers that keep things rolling, right? They keep things going from a security guard all the way up to the boss, yeah? And that leads me to the boss, yeah? The prefrontal cortex is like the owner of the store or the boss of the Safeway, right? The person in charge, that's the leader, yeah? And the workers are kind of like the communication between the security guard and the leader, yeah? Another way we could think about this is the president and what goes on in our White House, right? So the president would be the prefrontal cortex or the leader. The amygdala would be the Secret Service who is sent out to protect the president and anybody else who works for him, yeah? And then the hippocampus would be the other people who work for him, right? Like our Senate and our Congress and the people that are sitting in all of his press conferences that we see, right? So the amygdala is like a security guard. It's the one who keeps you safe. The prefrontal cortex is the leader. It's the decision maker. It's the person in charge. And the hippocampus is all those things in between that help those two to function individually. Yeah? Now, in the comments below, I'm going to put another video in there that explains this in a different way, and many of our 4th and 5th graders have seen that video. It talks about our upstairs brain and our downstairs brain. In that video, they're talking about the prefrontal cortex being the upstairs brain and the amygdala being the downstairs brain. The downstairs brain is where all of our survival happens. The upstairs brain is where all of our decisions and learning happens. Yeah? As always, please feel free to email me, call me, do anything if you have any questions. Go ahead and leave comments if you have questions as well. I can try to get back to them on there. And stay tuned for video number 2 on your brain.